So my question is, in my vortex, I have mastered the skill of being excited of the contrast that comes into my life. But in this time, space reality that I haven't been able to be a vibrational match to enjoy the contrast. So sometimes...
Now, don't misunderstand us. We're not asking you to look at unwanted things and enjoy them.
Yeah.
We're asking you to stand back in your knowledge of the value of the contrast and enjoy that knowledge. We're asking you to enjoy the desire that's born from the awareness of what you don't want. We're asking you to enjoy the abundance of well-being as it is compared to the contrast that shows itself. In other words, this is a conversation we just had with Esther just a few days ago when she was almost frantically focus wheeling to try to change the way she felt about something. Mm-hmm. And we said, Esther, we're not asking you to eat worms and like it. That's not the point of the focus wheel. We're not asking you to pick a piece of contrast and then make yourself like it. We just want you to understand in general terms the value of the contrast. We want you to take the bounce. We want you, in knowing what you don't want, to know what you do want. And we want you to, as quickly as you can, turn your attention to what you do want and start scripting about that. But if you make yourself unhappy, if you ridicule yourself or beat up on yourself for having a moment of contrast, then there's no point in you being here in this leading edge time-space reality, because you came knowing full well that the contrast was your best friend because it would cause you to focus. We're just asking you to deliberately focus. Don't be sloppy or lazy about it. Don't be complacent about it. Don't allow yourself to brood or dwell on things that don't feel good. Recognize how it feels early on and then change the subject in the early stages if it does not feel good. It is not your job to change the way you feel about things. It is your job to be aware of how you feel about things, because whenever you feel negative emotion about anything, it means you are contradictory or crossways of the way your inner being feels about that. So a very good thing to say when you feel negative emotion, or when you are wanting to resist a little bit of contrast, just say to yourself right out loud, clearly, my inner being feels differently about this. I wonder what my inner being thinks about this. I wonder how my inner being is looking at this. I wonder if my inner being even is looking at this. And then the answer will come to you. No, your inner being is not looking at that. Your inner being is not eating the worms. Your inner being is not looking at that, and that's why you feel bad while you are. You see?
Thank you. Thank you for what you just said. There was one thing that sometimes I say, wouldn't it be nice if? So if time is an illusion, I think when I was around 5 years old, or I'm just picking a number, I don't know exactly, I think I knew this more. And
sure.
I was in a society that kind of did that.
Society did its job. Society presented its contrasting self to you in order to help you become self-defining. Society didn't work against you. Society didn't thwart you. In other words, nothing has been done to you. All of it has been done for you. Mm-hmm. It's all for you. So, yes, when you were 5, you were less resistant because you'd practiced fewer thoughts about things. There were fewer things that you were pushing against, but your vortex wasn't as full and ripe either, and the energy wasn't moving as strong, and the momentum wasn't calling you in as powerful way. And so even if there were some resistance within you when you were 5, you wouldn't feel it as much because the momentum wasn't pulling against it. Did you get the sense of that? Mm-hmm. We used to say to you, if you're driving 5 miles an hour in your car and you hit a tree, not such a problem. If you're going 100 miles an hour in your car and you hit a tree, bigger problem. So of course, as you move through time, there is more momentum because you've put so much more in your vortex, and your inner being knows so much more clearly who you are and what you're asking for, and is standing in the fullness of that, summoning you always to that, you see. So negative emotion is a really good indicator. It means energy is in motion. It means source is on the case. It means cooperative components are being assembled. And it also means you are sort of kind of not being, in this red hot moment, a cooperative component. You might want to do something about that, which usually means change the subject. Usually means get off whatever it is you're focused upon, because all you have to do is give your attention to something less resistant, and off you go. This is a good time to remind you that the creative process is 3 steps. Step 1 is ask, and you've done all of that. You've done so much of that. Not 100% of it, but so much of your asking is already done. Step 2 is source answers, and that part's been done too. And so if you could just remember that your work is to be in that receptive mode. That doesn't mean complacent. That doesn't mean in that mode of never thinking. That doesn't mean in that mode of not being out there after it. That means aware of the way you feel and aware of what thoughts that you're thinking in any moment in time that are off or different or out of vibrational harmony with the thought that your inner being has about the same thing. As you move through time, you have given so much more precise, detailed information to your inner being about what you want. And you cannot then contradict it. Sometimes Esther will say to us when she feels negative emotion, because she knows she's asked for things that she's in this moment blocking. Blocking is too strong a word, but slowing down, resisting. And she'll say, could I have a do-over on that? I'd like to not have quite so much desire calling me on that, since I'm not up to speed. And the answer is always, you got to get up to speed. This is an engine that once you start it, you can't turn it off. You can't just turn it off. It's always, always, always calling you. And that's the way you want it. That's what guidance is. That's what that guiding light is. It's calling you toward what you have already vibrationally become. And nothing less will do. So resistance is such a lovely thing. It's like guidance to let you know, right here, here's a little piece of resistance that you've thrown on your trail. That's worth reminding you too. Every bit of resistance on your path of least resistance, you put there. And every bit of it that's there, you're keeping it active and in the way by your beliefs. Ooh, didn't you like hearing that? So if there's resistance on your trail, and of course there is, you put it there and you're keeping it active. So how do you think you might allow it to be inactive? Focus elsewhere. Because if you look at it and you say, oh, piece of resistance on my trail, I need to get rid of you, it just gets bigger. Go away from me, I said, go away from me, it just gets bigger. Stop it, 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 it gets bigger. I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, it gets bigger. In other words, attention to it just causes it to be there more. So what is the way to release the resistance from your path? When you feel negative emotion, figure out whatever it was you were thinking and why ever it was you were thinking it, and make a decision in that moment. I can say that prettier. I can think that differently. I can think that in a softer way. I can ignore that altogether. This is no longer a player in my life experience. And you know, that's almost always an accurate statement. This used to matter, but it doesn't anymore. There's a good statement for you. This used to matter, but it doesn't anymore. This used to be important, but it isn't anymore. You could say to yourself, why am I dragging you forward with me? Just to trip over you again and again. I think I'll just leave you behind. You may have served me at one time, but you're no longer serving me. You get the gist of it? Yeah.
In the concept of time, there's this thought that comes to me often, and is, wouldn't it be nice if I was able to go to that little girl when I was 5 years old and tell her, don't change that belief, and then that if I feel that I would create more momentum for
But
now.
is that a helpful thought? That's not a helpful thought. Wouldn't it be nice?
But is it possible? Maybe because if time is an illusion, maybe I can really go there and convince that girl, just keep going, don't switch that. So all those years.
All right, so speak that for us in a way. Speak that for us, because we're not disagreeing with you. The way you said it won't work, so say it in a different way. Wouldn't it be nice if I could be that little girl again? You're not going to be. So say it differently. Wouldn't it be nice if I could feel how I felt when I was that little girl? Oh, how did I feel when I was that little girl? Less attached to things, freer, easier, having more fun. less responsible, freer and easier, more expectant of good things. Yeah, that's a good plan.
Can we travel through time? I'm just curious.
Well, you cannot stop moving through time. Oh, you mean the other way?
Anyway, isn't everything happening right now at the same time?
Well, we'll play your silly game, but first you must tell us why you want to. Why do you want to defy the timeline that over eons and generations has been set into its perfect motion? Why do you want to mess with that?
Because I would like to bring the wisdom that I get to.
But that's assuming that the wisdom is not available to you right now. It's not time that's preventing you from wisdom. It's your vibrational proximity to the wisdom. It's your harboring of beliefs that deny your vibrational alignment with that wisdom. Can you feel the difference? Let's talk about time in this way. This conversation has never been before into all of the universe. There's been so much that you have presented, that we've chewed on together, that has caused an expansion of the universe. So everything is more now as a result of this very brief conversation. So the universe has become more. It will never become less than. So rather than thinking in terms of time, think in terms of that inevitable expansion. And you can never go back to a point from where you have expanded to. And so this question was a little different than that. You were wanting to go back to a time when you were seeing yourself more expanded. But that's a flawed premise. There has never been any time when you were more expanded than right here and right now. There has never been a better time than here and now. There are so many who are yearning for their youth or yearning for an earlier time. But what they're really yearning for is less resistance. It is our promise to you that if you could stand right here in this moment with less resistance, you would find this the best moment in time ever, because it has the most potential of yielding to you the most that you have ever asked for or created. You get that? As you've moved through life, you've created more and more and more, and its ripeness and readiness is much more for you here and now. So what you're only ever yearning for is your capacity to allow your receiving, your interpretation, your translation, your understanding, your feeling of it here and now, you see. There's never a time that's better than now. But there might have been a time that felt better to you than you're feeling right now, because you might be harboring more resistance right now than you did then. But now has the best potential of your best feeling of any time that you have ever lived. It just gets better and better and better and better, right up to the glorious time of your reemergence in a non-physical, which is, oh, so good.
You mean if I align to that, the way you express it so beautifully, then I wouldn't mind that all these years I didn't keep that connection. And that, because sometimes what I feel is that if I had kept that connection all those years and some of the things that I'm expressing now, then my life I would have been happier.
But what difference does that make? Because there's nothing to do about any of that. And the good news is that through all of that, you were filling your vortex with more things. And so it's sort of like people who go to college for a long time and then finally get their degree. It doesn't mean they stopped living while they were going to school.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean life's better once they get their degree either.
Yeah.
Really good.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah.